Hi, I'm Kev from Elite Driving School, and today I'm going to answer one of the commonly asked questions about driving test waiting times. So let me try and explain how they actually work. When you book a driving test, you're booking with the DVSA, who are the Driving Vehicle Standards Agency, and they are an executive agency for the Department of Transport, who take people for driving tests and who approve people to be driving instructors in the UK. Now, when you book a driving test, you're booking an examiner's time in a future date, okay? So unbeknown to you, once you book that test, you've already been allocated a driving examiner on a certain date, so you go into his diary. Now, just to explain how things work, the UK has driving test centres in most major cities and towns, but not every town has a driving test centre, and some big cities have more than one. So if we sort of find we talk about one individual city, so let's look at Kingston upon Hull. It's the 16th biggest city in the UK. They have 289,000 residents, and they take roughly an average 10,000 tests a year through just one test centre. Now, at the test centre, on average, there's around about 8 driving examiners, but at any one time, I think the average is around about 5 driving examiners taking tests, probably 8 times a day. So that gives you an idea of how busy these guys are. So at certain times, there are certain months where driving test bookings are high, and other months where they're quite low. So winter months, driving test booking times are quite low. In summertime, you can gather very, very high. Now, this might be down to the fact that one of the busiest times in our experience for people booking driver lessons is January and February, which comes off a New Year's resolution sort of thing, I would imagine. Which means these guys are going to be ready for tests around about the summer months. Summer months is obviously very popular. Nobody wants to learn to drive in the winter. Most people want to learn to drive into the summer. Long days means that we've got instructors tend to work longer hours. So that all adds substance to the actual driving test waiting list. Now, as we are in July 2022, most cities have got long waiting lists for driving tests. Now, it's never generally anything like as bad as it is at the moment, and this is largely due to COVID. When we was in lockdown, in other words, we couldn't give driver lessons, the DVSA wasn't giving driving tests either. So that meant that we got all of the tests prior to 2020 lockdown and 2021 lockdown, all still trying to get lessons and book driving tests. Plus, while I was in lockdown, there was lots and lots of people that turned 17 that wanted to start the driving lessons. So effectively, we've got the double amount of customers taking lessons in the same period of time that would normally work within. So that's why the driving test waiting list is as high as it is. Eventually the DVSA will get this back to some sort of a normality, but that might take 2 years before that starts to really impact on where it is at this moment in time. Now, looking at cancellations. So first of all, let's look at tests that do get cancelled and why. So obviously there are many tests that get cancelled for one reason or another. But people will cancel tests if they're not going to be ready for the driving test, or if something else happens beyond their control, like illness, or something's happened with their instructor or the instructor's vehicle. The DVSA cancelled test, and that could be because the driving examiner is off sick, or is probably late back from a previous test, hasn't got time to conduct your test. Now, weather conditions also play a big part in tests being cancelled. But the DVSA can cancel the driving test, 2 months before, 2 weeks before, or even 2 minutes before. So you might find that sometimes it happens quite a lot that you turn up to the test centre with your student, you sat there waiting and no examiner comes out. Then you find out that your examiner for some reason isn't working. They haven't told you, and then they have to reschedule the test. Now at the moment, if they're rescheduling the test, you could be waiting up to 3 or 4 months unless they can find an earlier place for you. So I know it's unfair, but that's just the way the system works. Nothing we can do about it. It's out of our control. Bear in mind the DVSA is a totally different organisation to what the driving instructors do. Now, test cancellations, so people are going out there searching and finding test cancellations, and I know a lot of people have been using these cancellation websites. Now, how they used to find cancellations was by using bots. Now, a bot is a piece of software that's been written and automated to track the DVSA platform. So it searches the DVSA website for cancellations, grabs a cancellation, okay, and then they then sell that on to a client. They probably already sold that first of all. I think you have to go onto these websites, put your license details in your details, and as soon as they find a driving test, they'll book it on your behalf. Now the problem is you don't know where that test is going to be, because you're more or less going to sign that if you can't get one in the local area, you'll take one in a nearby test centre. So for the example that we're using from Hull, that could either be Scunthorpe or York or maybe even Bridlington. Now that's alright if you can find a cancelled test, and cancellations generally are last minute, but sometimes it can be a little bit further ahead, like 2-3 weeks, but most of them within that week, okay? Because people don't cancel tests until the last minute. Now let's say you've got a cancellation and you're with a driving instructor, and your driving instructor already has a test on that particular day. You've got no vehicle to use for the driving test. So then let's say that you're going to go and try and find another driving instructor. You're now expecting a driving instructor who's already full to stop doing what he's doing with his existing clients to fit you in for a driving test and a couple of lessons, and they're not going to do that. Their clients, their existing clients, are more important. So unfortunately, you're going to end up with a test that you can't do anything with, and you'll end up losing it, which means that somebody else could have had that test. So I would always advise that if you are going to book a driving test, please consult your driving instructor so they know that they can manage that test date for you. If you are thinking of trying to get a cancellation, again, please consult your instructor before you do so to make sure they can manage that test date for you. Okay. Now, just going back to these companies that troll the DVSA website for cancellations, they've been stopped from doing that now because the DVSA was aware that these people are finding the cancellations, they're using the system to do that, and then they're selling those cancellation tests on at double the actual price, which is really unfair. So the DVSA have stopped that happening, so nowadays it's easy enough to go and find cancellations for yourself. You just have to go onto the DVSA website and go on there quite often. You might, if there's any cancellations, you might be looking and find one. But as I say, I would always consult with your driving instructor first. Now, I hope this has been of help. But if you have any questions that you want to ask about absolutely anything, whether it's driving tests or driving lessons or anything, please email support@elite-driving-school.co.uk. Look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.